All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide where in my picture I want to establish some of those organic shapes, specifically trees is what I'm going to show you here today. And when I think about drawing a tree, I want to think about scale. We talked about this when we added doors and windows, but scale comes into play in all aspects of this drawing. If I'm going to draw a tree next to this building, then I need that tree to be substantial. I don't want it to be a little decorative tree. I want it to be a tree that is going to be tall enough that it's overshadowing or overlapping my building here, okay? That means a couple things have to happen. If it's in front of the building, the bottom of the tree has to be below the bottom of the building, so the things lower down in the page are closer to us. And then we also want it to be higher than the top of the building. So it has to start below the bottom of the building, and we want it to be higher than the top of the building. So this is where linear perspective is going to come into play. If I decide that right around in here is where I want my tree to be located, I am going to make that the edge of my tree. I'm going to give myself a couple other spots here along that edge to add some trees. And I draw lightly and loosely because I'm going to erase some of these lines later. And if I decide that I want to make this tree tall enough that it overlaps this building and canopies over it and casts a shadow on it, and again I'm drawing light and loose here, then I am going to make sure that I have the top of it, it's going to be in here somewhere. This canopy of the tree is going to be in here. So then I'm going to use that height of my trunk, which I'm going to call right about in there, and I'm going to line that up also to my vanishing point. What in the world? What's the point of that? Well, that's going to help us understand scale. So now I'm going to draw a tree on this side of the building that I want to look like it's approximately the same size tree, the same type of tree, planted at the same time frame, so that they're comparable in size, but this one is going to look like it's further away because it's smaller. And we're using linear perspective to help us understand how much smaller it should be. So if this is the foot of the tree here closest to us, then the foot of this one should run into that same line along that orthogonal. So now, and I'm going to let the structure overlap this tree. So it's going to be partially hidden by that building I just drew. And then I notice that here the top of that line, that orthogonal, is going to be where I'm going to establish whatever foliage, and this can be kind of a fun, silly shape because it's a tree, right? We don't have to be super precise about it. And that's one of the fun parts about drawing a tree, is that we can be a little bit silly with our lines, but we're still keeping in mind our understanding of linear perspective. So if I'm drawing can spread the trunk out here, I can go in here and establish however wide I want that to be, if the roots come out, whatnot. But I've used that perspective to help me understand what the scale of those things should be. What if I put a tree way back here in the distance? The same rules apply. So scale again comes into consideration. Here would be the foot of the tree, and believe it or not, that would be the top of the tree. That would be where I would establish the shape, however wide or whatever shape I want for that foliage to be. Couple things to keep in mind. The trees themselves, the trunk, while not made of perfectly straight lines, are vertical. You do not want to draw trees that look like they're getting ready to fall over and collapse your building. So notice how if we drew a line through the center of this tree, it would be a vertical line. So I can think about my T-square. If I don't trust myself to draw a vertical tree, I can check it with a T-square. Even though this line isn't perfectly straight, the axis or the center of the tree remains vertical, okay? And then we're utilizing our concept of linear perspective to help us establish scale. So we need, the things I'm going to be looking for are multiples. I'm going to be looking for you making sure that anything that should be vertical is vertical, and anything that is moving back in space is making sense in scale with anything that is closer to us. Okay? So, does it have to be trees? No. It could be bushes, frankly. But the same concept of scale would still apply. It could be rows of corn stalks. It could be whatever creative solution you can come up with here. But I want to see the use of linear perspective to help you establish the scale. That's what I'm looking for here. That's specifically what I want to see you using. Okay?